Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here, Basketball Rewind, and we are here joined by, ironically, with my introduction, the hello and welcome co-host, William Liu. Welcome to the podcast here. I believe it's the number one, or at least at one point it was the number one Raptors podcast in Canada. So shout out to you for that. The other thing is that, just so you know, I've been listening to you since the RR days back in the day with you and Blake Murphy, and even before that, I actually found about
Mm.
Raptors Republic when your buddy Joe Cash, when he wrote for, I think it
Hmm.
was like the Raptor blog.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. Oh
so
wow,
we're
you've been
going,
around a while. Yeah.
yeah. So it's been a minute. So yeah, welcome to the show. So we'll just jump right into it. It's been a
Okay.
late it's been a long 24 hours based on everything that has occurred with the Blue Jays and everything. So let's just jump into it. Of course, everyone knows Coach Roach. Coach Roach is also joining us. Beyond is not here, but he is still around, folks. So don't worry. Yeah. So first of all, the NBA has been crazy this season. I mean, whether it be I've noticed that there's a more renewed intensity to the actual games. There's been some some scandals, of course, as we know. But first and foremost, I'm going to go away from the Raptors and then kind of track back to the Raptors. As have you really enjoyed the game so far? And I know it's early in the season's young, but
Hmm.
has there been any sort of team that you're like, if I wasn't watching the Raptors, I would suggest that people watch this team in either conference?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think ironically, it's the team that the Raptors just played and lost to, the San Antonio Spurs. They're 4-0 in the season. I mean, what we're seeing from Victor right now is like it's absurd. I mean, specific to the game they played against the Raptors, they were like, okay, we're gonna make Wemby the point guard and have him initiate the offense. And obviously, part of that is De'Aaron Fox is out, but it's not like they don't have two quality point guards with Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper as well. But they're like, let's just make Wemby the point guard. Let's see what freaky things that Wemby will do tonight. Um, and I think the supporting cast around them has like really solidified in a way. I still see them as a really young team that will make a lot of mistakes. But the singular talent of Wemby and just watching teams night after night have to like contort themselves and try to figure out any sort of matchup for him offensively and defensively um is just like such a joy to watch, right? So and I think some of the things is like you actually want to see some of these plays happen live. You don't want to just watch them in moments. Obviously the clips are great, but I think when you get the context of the whole game of like last game against the Raptors, Wemby was just like, I'm not gonna guard anybody. I'm just gonna stand in the paint. And the Raptors were just straight up like, I'm not gonna take any shots in the paint anymore. Like the fact they only got one block is because nobody except for maybe Colin Murray Boyles actually took it to Wemby because everybody's just afraid of this guy. Like we haven't seen a force like this in the league. I I don't even know when, man. Like LeBron, I guess. You know?
Yeah, I mean they've definitely tried to promote certain guys as they're coming up, but this
Hey,
guy,
no promotion necessary. His game is the promotion,
yeah,
man. This is a, you know what I mean? You don't have to like hype anything up. It's just
it's
and he's
it's
focused, he's dedicated. It's I think a lot of young players can learn from Wemby's mentality for sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, going from training with Monks to KG to
Mhm.
Hakeem. I mean, this man had an off season and a half, and then comes back and man on a mission. I mean, I know it's early, but I mean, he looks like he's hunting for some sort of award, and he will definitely be. If if it's not Defensive Player of the Year, at least it's
Mhm.
probably going to, because I think the night before he had like 9 blocks or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And it just he looks like literally a grown man playing against middle schoolers on those mini hoops. But hey, I mean, it is what it is. I agree with you. On in terms of the East, is there any other team or that like Spurs all the way for you?
I I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched as many East games because they're usually happening the same night as the Raptors. But I also don't like watching most teams in the East. I feel like the
That's
Western
fair.
Conference basketball quality is so much higher, you
Yeah.
know?
And it has been for a long time, even since like the
Yeah,
late '90s. Ever since like Jordan left, the West
yeah.
has been so dominant. And Wemby, I think the 2026 MVP award is his to lose right now. If the Spurs finish in
Wow.
the top five, you're putting up these type of historic numbers that he's doing. I
Mhm.
don't know who's going to challenge that unless the Spurs start to lose or he gets an injury. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, fingers crossed, man. I mean, I think the one way to think about Wemby is just like, look, if Wemby was just who he is right now, he'll make $1 billion playing basketball. The fact that he actually, with this $1 billion already basically in the bank for him, still is hungry to improve and get
Yeah.
better says a lot about his character. A lot of young guys can come into the league and just make a lot of money right away on their talent, no problem. This is all just pure love of the game from Wemby, and the fact that he has it from this young of an age shows that that's the determination that like the truly special players have.
Yeah, there's this. I don't know how to describe it. I'll use my co-host, who's not here, Beyond's words. It didn't take them forever to realize that Michael Jackson is Michael Jackson.
Yep.
You know, and at some point you see that, right? It's like, you know, get out the way, Tito. I'm sorry, but this dude is the dude. So
Yep.
yeah, I totally agree with that. To kind of go, and you did mention something about defense. I will get into that later, but yeah, I have
Okay.
a kind of a philosophy question about basketball, about like anchoring defenses in a second. But before we get into that, really quickly, just about the Raptors. Obviously, there was an ownership change and a C-suite
Mhm.
shift, we'll call it. The main thing that I'm asking is more about like productions like Open Gym. How, I mean, I know it's still being produced, but Bell was a main contributor to that. How
Mhm.
does that change in your opinion moving forward?
Uh, I think some of it's to be determined, right? I think Bell wants to continue to have some sort of presence around the Raptors. I mean, this is a team, this is like a company that's been around the Raptors since day one, in some sort of capacity. Obviously, recently in a sort of co-ownership. Um, and I think they just still want to establish a presence, but some of these things are like luxuries, right? And I think one of the bigger questions for me is how much does um the owners of the team and how much, like how much they want to continue to invest or in the content around the team. I understand that when like I've been through these myself in terms of like when sort of companies take over other companies, there's a lot of redundancies and people lose jobs, and it usually takes a while. Then they resettle things financially, and then and it's mostly an accounting thing more than anything else. Um, but having said that, though, we've seen a lot of cuts. We've seen a lot of cuts. I work in media, so I'm friends with a lot of people in media. Seen a lot of cuts in NBA TV, NBA TV Canada. I don't necessarily see um I haven't seen that point where they're reinvesting and adding more coverage. Even small minor things start to annoy me now. It's just like I noticed that like people weren't posting the scrums, which used to just be like always posted, like before games or after games. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but they're gonna post like the comments from the players. It's part of what I think helps people understand the players a little bit better, get to know them better. It's part of promoting the brand. Um, the last, I mean, and obviously the Jays are in the World Series, so I understand. But I've been to the last three practices. There were like maybe there was like four reporters total on one of them, and two of them were there to ask about the Jays. You know what I mean? So, and no one's even uploading these. No one's even like shooting these. So I'm just like, that should just be a given is that we would get this. It's not even level of access. It's just kind of standard. If you're making the players speak, then first off, do they have? Is there an audience for them to speak to? And
Right.
second of all, are they actually getting the message out there? So even small things like that, I just feel like they're kind of like cutting in around the edges that don't feel like it's expanding the coverage of the Raptors. And even though that is on the companies themselves to cover the team, I think it's also on the Raptors organization to make sure that they're not being promoted and being squeezed into becoming like third class citizens in the city sporting wise.
Now, I could. I was told something. Now you could either confirm, deny, or plead the
Yeah,
fifth
sure.
here.
So
But for things like 905 games, I heard that they stopped even giving like stat sheets out recently,
okay.
and to the media members at times, and like that. If that is the case, then that's another where it's like, okay, you're cutting corners. Is that really the way that you really want to cut corners? I don't know because yeah.
I can't lie to you. I've been to a 905 game in a minute, but
Okay,
I,
okay, fair enough.
it
You're
doesn't
asking
take
the
much
wrong
for
dude.
someone to print. You gotta just print it on the printer. What do you mean? Like it's
Oh,
almost a
okay,
damn near automated system. So
got you,
hopefully
got you.
there's like yeah. I mean the PR staff in the 905 has generally treated me pretty well and like been pretty helpful.
Yeah,
But then again I can't speak to it because I haven't been there in a while. So
right,
maybe this
right.
season though. Maybe this season.
So just to flip to something a little bit more lighter, just for a second, the potential charity game. I just have a suggestion. You take it as is. If it happens,
Okay.
my question is: are you restricted to who you pick? Like, can you add like a Matt Bonner, a VC, and Alvin Williams? Because I mean, if you guys can, even I know she's no longer there, but Sav, there's
Mhm.
some people that could give you guys a chance against the
Oh,
coaches.
are you talking about the media game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this isn't for charity. I mean, this is usually not
Just
even
for
a game that's
pride.
broadcast, to be honest. Honestly, it's more than anything else. It's actually just an effort to sort of allow the people who work in the organization, and I'm not even talking about players, but like assistant coaches, maybe even trainers and stuff like that, to get a chance to like personally interact a little bit with media and vice versa, right? I think there is like a nice working relationship. We were able to sort of like get to know them on a name to name, like first name basis, and be around these guys. So unfortunately, the idea has been firmly shut down. So I think
Oh,
it'll just be a regular media versus media game again,
okay.
which will not be competitive basketball. I'll tell you that much.
I mean, maybe depending on how the season goes, good or bad, maybe that changes. You need a distraction, or you need to, hey, we are doing real, as you're celebrating, you guys could have a Cobra staff yourself or whatever. It'll be good. So we'll
Yeah,
see
you know
what
what? They should
happens.
bring the Raptor chain out. I agree, actually. That's a good idea. I'm gonna bring that up to people. I want to wear that chain when I drop 10 points on Johnny
Yeah,
Goldberg.
Or who someone gets the Cobra staff, if you play great defense on somebody. There you go.
exactly, exactly. Did
That
did
will
well in the
require
layup
someone to play
line.
good defense.
So just the basketball philosophy question. I mean, you mentioned Wemby and just he could literally just like stay back and just like survey from almost rim height. It's like this guy is insane. But like yeah, like can you? And I'll get coaching on this as well. Like, this is a long standing question that I've kind of debated for a while with coach and beyond. Like, can you really even anchor a defense as a wing these days? Like, it just and have like a top 10 defense without a center. I'm not saying what type of center that you need, but it seems really, really difficult to do and very rare.
Are you talking about in a Raptors context? Because the Raptors' best
Just,
defensive player, Scotty,
I
in
mean,
general?
just in general. I mean, I've thought of it from a Raptors perspective as well, but
Yeah.
I've also thought of it like our best defensive teams had Mark Gasol, Serge Ibaka on them,
Mhm.
right? And like, yes, they had the
Yeah.
wings, but
I mean, I don't really think that like it's I, I I think that'd be pretty creative, right? I think the closest you've seen to that is what the Warriors did when they went small ball. They had Draymond, they had Andre Iguodala, they had Kevin Durant, they had Clay.
right,
Um, and you could switch and keep the ball in front a little bit more. And in that era, there was a lot of mismatch hunting. So like teams
right,
were specifically trying to like play more one on one, but obviously with the mismatch. And so if you're able to switch and negate everything, which basically I guess they still had Steph to sort of account for, but the help defense is also pretty good around them. But
right,
yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking about defensive anchor, you're mostly talking about guys who like can single handedly take away the paint. Draymond is special because he could play like a wing and he could play in the paint and sort of be equally big in either spots. But yeah, I mean, I do think fundamentally, like, yeah, when you think about the best defenders, like, it's not a coincidence. I don't even think it's wrong that, like, it has to be like 90% of like defensive player of the year winners have been centers.
yeah,
They have an outsized impact on the defense. I don't know. What do you think, coach?
I think you build a defense based on your personnel. And if you have a guy like Wemby, you want to bring in guys who are on offense, bring him into Wemby to Wemby's at the rim, altering shot or blocking the shot. So I just think building a defense around the personnel, if it is a big guy with credible athleticism or size, that certainly helps. But you still have to build out your team defense as well. I remember back in the day, the Raptors used to hide Jose Calderon on defense because he wasn't that good of a defender, right?
Hmm.
So they had to take that into consideration. And I'm sure the Raptors today have to take that into consideration from some of their players right now because the last 4 games have not been very good defensively outside the Atlanta game.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Raptors aren't really trying to hide their weak defenders. They're almost trying to expose them by making them play even more up on every ball handler. But that's a
And that's
separate
another
story.
thing too, right? Like that
Yeah.
the pressing up 90 feet. sustainable depending on the personnel you have, right? It
Mhm.
depends on what the coaching staff wants, I guess, what they're trying to promote.
Yeah.
I mean, Coach, I think you had a question about that, so we could just go to that. I mean, because it just leads right off this, but
Well, yeah, I mean, as we're filming this, Raptors are 1-3. Defense
Mhm.
has been an issue. There's no debating that. I guess my question for you is, Darko and the coaching staff in the offseason put a huge emphasis on defense. And to be fair, in the summer league, James Wade and his staff, that team played the hell of defense, right?
Mhm.
They were pressuring full court, trapping, rotating, switching. They're able to do that. And I get that. You want to be better defensively because the last 2 years, it has not been good defensively. Um, and I guess I guess my question for you is, um, do we have many solutions for our point of attack defense right now?
You know, you will know this well as a coach, right? Sometimes you have players that you want to convince them to play a different way, and maybe you can bring a better result out of them.
Mm,
But there's only so much you can lead a horse to water. Some guys just aren't built to sort of play the style you have, and so that's a lot of coaching, right? You have to. It's a bit of a negotiation. Very few coaches, especially in the NBA nowadays, are like it's my way or the highway. You know, you could Eric Spoelstra can do that, but I mean, Spo's also won 2 championships and he's been around 20 years. So, some random guy who walks in, he could probably, outrank them. But I don't think the Raptors are in that situation. I think that the Raptors clearly had an idea in mind and that they wanted to aspire to. And I don't think after 4 games they're going to give up on it. I think they'll give it a little bit more time. But I think, if this is the style that they want to play, where they're up on everybody, where they're pressuring, they're just being like really aggressive, looking to get switches, um, and poke the ball free and everything like that. I think a couple of things. Number one, they got to get better at it. I mean, like the Raptors got to be up there for like how many fouls they commit per game. They allow 30 free throws a game like pretty regularly, and that's kind of a consequence of the fact that you're playing so high up. You're probably getting beat a little bit more, but you're also gambling for steals a little bit more. Some of that stuff you just have to learn. Like, there's aggression, but there's not just like mindless aggression. And sometimes the Raptors have had that. The other part, which I think coaches probably are alluding to, is just like some of these guys aren't really made to play this style of defense, man. I mean,
Thank you.
you could
That's
try
what I'm
to
trying to say.
lead, you try to lead IQ and RJ, to becoming better defenders. But if you're asking them to do things defensively that they're not good at or they're not really able to do, then you're actually just making your defense worse. Of course, if you had great help defense around them, maybe you can kind of compensate for that. Doesn't help that Jakob, who should be the Raptors' best defender, has a bad back and he looks like a shell of himself right now.
Yeah,
But still, even with a healthy Jakob, it's not like he's Wemby back there. You know what I mean? Like I think that there has to be more of an emphasis on guys to play better point of attack defense, and that's probably what the most frustrating part is. Is I don't really see the starters individually taking on that challenge. Brandon Ingram, I'll lump him into this as well. I mean, just giving up straight line drives to PJ Washington, Harrison Barnes. Like, look, we're not even asking you to guard the top guys, but can you guard your assignment one on one? These guys are relatively low level threats. All due respect to NBA players, but like there's certain guys you got to be able to guard one on one, especially preventing them just take it strong to the basket. So, um, I think they'll give it a little bit more time, just because I don't think they'll give it up just yet. But it's a pretty big difference between summer league, which you're playing inexperienced players in inexperienced teams, and you also have 10 fouls. Okay, so you're not necessarily giving away 30 free throws a game, which almost automatically sinks you. And not and also at the same time, that's Jamal Shed and Jacoby Walter, who are probably the best on-ball defenders on this team. If you're trying to hawk the ball, those guys aren't even getting the majority of minutes. Jacoby wasn't even in the rotation recently until, Grady Dick really once again proved that he's not good on defense. And then they were like, okay, fine, we'll swap it up and put Jacoby in there. So
right.
it's
Well,
a long question, but I think this is the biggest question facing the Raptors. Is like, can they actually play the way that Darko wants them to play? Or if not, then what do you do? Because I think that lands everybody in trouble, coach
yeah,
included.
yeah,
right. My concern about this is just from my perspective is when you play that style, Nick Nurse tried to play that style as well.
Mm-hmm.
That really aggressive defense, trap, rotate, etc. One, you need athletes. big time athletes, especially in the front
Yep.
court. I worry about this team, quite honestly. It's not athletic enough. When I look at Cleveland and I look at OKC, big guys, lots of athletes, especially on the wings. I don't
Hmm.
know. I'm not trying to go at the players or anything. I just wanted the roster makeup with the defense you want to play. Is that conducive to this team, and is that sustainable? My opinion is it's not sustainable, that's for sure. So hopefully they'll try to figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough one. I mean, I
Yeah,
had
it's
this
just.
concern going into the season, to be honest.
Mm,
Just to focus back on Brandon Ingram, as you pointed out, like I'm not okay. I'm not trying to skewer the man, right? But like I've watched enough of him on the Pelicans, even on the Lakers, where LeBron's like pushing him into spots and stuff like that. And he's
mm,
always had moments where okay, on ball he can be a little bit better, but off ball he's been a little bit spacey, and he's just never been a. He's not someone that's contending for an all one of the top 10 defense spots per year. Right? That's just
hmm.
it is what it is. Um, and it's almost like going back to the other philosophy question I didn't ask, and we don't have to get into it, but it's like, yeah, like how do you design a defense? Are you supposed to be designing it around Scotty's strengths or your defensive player strengths, assuming that they are not a center, or should you be trying to cover weaknesses to allow you to like have more energy in other areas? And I
Hmm.
know it's really a darker question. I mean, that you
Yeah, it's fine.
but it's an interesting thing to think about, right? Like, because I'm like, I don't know about this. One.
Look, if it doesn't work, I think that it's gonna backfire on a lot of guys. So it's better work. You know what I mean?
True.
Because it's like if the coach has to flip his whole philosophy after the first 10 games, chances are they might flip the coach. You know what I mean? So like I also
Without
think it's
it.
some of that is it's not unfair to the coach. I think in a way, just in the sense that like a lot of times you can see players taking on personal responsibility. You look at that the first quarter of that game against San Antonio where the Raptors gave up 41 points. I mean, I got so tired of it. I started just filming my laptop, being like, "Hey, this guy's out of rotation, and this guy's like just freelancing and do like stupid stuff. Like, okay, they'll give the ball to Harrison Barnes on the wing with Brandon Ingram all over him, and then RJ Barrett will just leave his man under the rim to try to come over for like a steal, and it's like that's not defense, man. That's like it's like hero ball. I don't even know what do you call it really, but that's just not defense. But these guys don't even seem to like particularly trust each other. So there's like a lot of things to do. Like obviously, guys got to take on their individual assignments better.
Right.
Obviously they got to figure out what they need to do and find the right level of aggression in this scheme. But like any good defense, you're gonna have to help yourself. Like the Raptors 2019, the whole thing was, I mean, it was great because they had individually great defenders who
Yeah.
were athletic and had size. But then they were so good when they can rotate and help for each other and be on a string. Raptors aren't on a string. They're kind of one guy trying to like force it. And just like how that doesn't work on offense, that definitely doesn't work on defense.
Yeah. I mean, I saw one where it was Vassell last night, and he was down low on the baseline, and then Scotty
Mhm.
came over around his man to trap when I think Jak was already there to help.
Yeah.
And it's like,
That's not
okay,
defense, man. That's hero ball. That's like genuinely like you don't trust your teammates to make a play. I'm gonna have to make it myself.
yeah,
That's
there's
not how
there's three
defense is played.
guys now, and you're leaving your own man open. And it's not me putting it. I mean, trust me, I, uh, for those in the audience, they know that I give IQ a lot of flack all the time for
Hmm.
his defense. But also, I look back on guys like IQ and RJ. I'm not saying that they've ever been great defenders, but they look better in New York under Tibbs. And
Yeah,
so it does bring a question of like something needs to break one way or another, and it's either everyone needs to figure this out, or like there needs to be a complete change in terms of philosophy and tone
Well,
on one end.
I
Hmm?
noticed in the Milwaukee game, Giannis caught the ball in the high post on the left side.
hmm,
Scotty was guarding him. They send a double over. I'll take Giannis in the high post instead of under the hoop. So it's because it's so easy for Giannis just to kick it out to AJ Green or Cole Anthony for
hmm,
free, and he did that, and they want him. Like, if you can't trust Scotty to guard Giannis, I'm not saying he's going to shut him down. Nobody really shuts him down. But if you can't trust
yep,
Scotty to guard Giannis, who are you going to trust to do that?
yeah. No, exactly.
So to shift things, move forward. I guess the real question is over the first 20 games, including what we have seen so far, first four. What do you have the record as being? Because it's a fairly balanced schedule, which I like.
Okay.
Overall in the season, there's no like spots where I'm like, oh, there's 10 games where it's all against like weak teams or whatever. I think it's a good schedule to test your team.
Hmm.
So yeah, like what do you think that the first 20 games will look like, including what we've seen so far? Like, where do you have
Yeah.
them being so far?
Uh,
Might change,
I think they'll probably be a 500 team kind of throughout the season.
right?
I'm optimistic. I think I had them at 44, but it's not like that high of a number really. That's like 3 games over 500. I do think that like there's been a couple promising things. I knew Brandon Ingram was a shot maker, but he's making some tough shots, man. I don't even feel like he's integrated into the offense yet. He's just like it's kind of a bucket usually when they give the ball to him. I think it's gonna only get better when he integrates with his teammates and they figure out the spacing a little bit better. Also, when Jakob doesn't have a bad back, Jakob's just permanently in the lane doing nothing. It'll
Yeah,
hurt the offense, but the offense actually really hasn't even been that much of an issue. They've actually been okay on offense. It's just the defensive part where they're kind of running themselves into the ground a little bit. So I do think that some of that is in their own control. Like even if they play the wrong scheme for the personnel, I
right.
still think they could play a lot better than this. And the schedule will ease up a little bit. Right now they're having a couple of bad matchups. That sounds like I'm making excuses for them, but honestly, I thought the Dallas game was winnable. Dallas didn't look that impressive to me, and Dallas proceeded to lose their very next game.
Yes,
And I thought the Milwaukee game was very winnable, and they had 6 turnovers and 6 missed free throws in the fourth quarter, which you're always going to die by. So, there is a world where it's 2-2 and we're having a different conversation. But I think they'll be around 500 kind of throughout the year.
right, right. And is there like a threshold? For me, I feel like there's a threshold. They need to have in the first 20 games 8 wins minimum, and below that, it's like okay, we gotta like as you said, like we gotta rethink
Mm.
things here. I don't know where coach is at.
In terms of the record.
Yeah,
I had this team for the year. I had them like anywhere from 38 to 42 wins. I think the middle of the East got better, but the top of the East is still the top of the East. The middle of the East got better. So we get a bunch of teams in there that are, I think, have some similar records. But um, I think some of these stretches, though, like against Houston, that's coming up, where they have every guy over 6'7" in their starting lineup, and we no longer have a 7-footer on the team. Or well, I should say, we'll see what Pirtle's injury history is going to look like moving forward, but it doesn't look promising.
yeah,
Hope I'm wrong.
yeah. The other thing is just the every single offseason. We had a long offseason actually, but every offseason seems to be one that feels like the penultimate, like, franchise altering. You have a pit in your stomach leading up to, like, these things. It's ever since the championship, it's felt like that every single year. I don't feel like that's normal. It might be though. Is there a way to kind of move away from that? Is it like to me? Are they being? Is it because they just haven't been? You don't want them to telegraph the moves and be like, "This is what we're doing." We're gonna trade this guy for this and hope it goes well, right? But do you feel like part of it is been the uh, not clear cut? Like we are, I mean, it came from Jakob last year. I don't think it should be coming from Jakob. It should be really coming from like whoever's on top. So, do you think that that's something that has been an issue? And do you think that that gets, I think Bobby was actually fairly, he's not a quote machine, but he was fairly clear cut with his, how he outlined things. Just wondering your
Mhm.
thoughts.
Oh yeah, I mean their goal is not to tank this year. If they tank this year, it's because things really went wrong, and that's the pragmatic thing to do. But I don't think anyone wants this to be like if they have to end up tanking again this year, it may not be the worst thing for the organization long term, just
Yeah,
because it looks to be a pretty nice draft, and who knows? I mean, we've seen lots of like jumping around in the lottery since they even the odds. So maybe the Raptors can get lucky a little bit. They've been getting unlucky, obviously, with the Raptors falling last year. Although I think CMB, I'm pretty happy with CMB. He had a really nice game against San Antonio. Um, but yeah, like that would they want to win, man. And like between, I mean, it's kind of a messy rebuild anyway. I think it's kind of difficult because a lot of teams come to this point where they're okay. The previous thing didn't work. They rebuild. They get a couple new guys in. They maybe tank along that way, and then somewhere along the way they decide like we're gonna try to make a go of it.
Right.
And it gets really sad when that team that tries to make a go of it realizes that they're also in need of a rebuild. And as a Raptor fan, I've actually seen this happen before. You know what I mean? Like it's it's called having Brian Colangelo as your GM. So like it's not new. It's
Yeah.
not novel either. It's just a reality. And I think that the onus is on some of the players, but also the coaching involved. I mostly put it on the players to be honest. Like they kind of have to figure out a way to make it work and become competitive and start somewhere. And honestly, their first step is not going to be perfect. You know what I mean? Like your first step is probably like, okay, I'm going to lose in the first round. But what was really beautiful to me from like the last 10 years was just like when they traded Rudy Gay and they were like, okay, we're going to make a rebuild of this. We got a new GM and everything. Kyle and DeMar really just said like screw everything. We're gonna try to like we're gonna make this happen. And they like took the team by their collars and they like dragged them into being competitive. And that single-handedly changed the next decade for the Raptors. And they weren't a perfect team then. To be honest, when you look at the roster, it wasn't even that great. It was just, they made a couple changes in the bench, sure, and they moved Rudy Gay, but like more than anything else, it was that determination. I always think back to that quote that DeMar gave to I think Zach Lowe back then, where he said like, we could have, it was sink or swim, and we were out here like Michael Phelps, and I was like, that's honestly some of it. You need to have that like stubbornness to win in any kind of sport at a high level. And of course, DeMar and Kyle had those personalities, and I just want to see that come out of the players now. Like if the Raptors are struggling, like 10 games of the season, let's say they're 2-8. I want to see some people like actually snap and like try to like
Yeah.
lead this team, man. This team feels so short on leadership that like we permanently have Garrett Temple there on the side for 3 years now. You know what I mean? Like all due respect to Garrett, great man, but
Hey
come on.
man, you'll
Yeah.
look great in a
And,
polo. That's all I'm
yeah.
gonna say.
Well, who do you think could be those couple of players that could snap or have that
Mhm.
Lowry DeRozan moment where we say, no, we're going for this. We're tired of, you know, being where
Yeah.
we're at right now. We don't care that Andrew Wiggins is the number one prospect he was at the time. Right?
Yeah.
They had that reason to tank if they wanted to. But who do you think those two, or maybe it's just one player?
I think Scotty's got to be one of them.
Hmm.
I think they've I don't even remember another player that we've had in the Raptors organization where we talked this much about his maturity. It's been a conversation since literally he got drafted to this point.
Hmm.
That could sound like it's a bad thing, but I genuinely feel like he's actually improving in that front. But there's still like sloppy little moments that come through, right? Like in that San Antonio game, he's like freelancing defensively and forcing it. In that Mavs game, he was playing great, but they also had that one moment where he got a no call on a missed layup. I don't even know if it was a foul, but he came back and he was like complaining, gets his head turned, and someone cuts behind him. Leadership isn't necessarily what you do when you're winning and like you're able to celebrate. Leadership is like when things are tough and you're actually able to sort of pull the organization and the team back in the right direction, and how consistently you do that. You don't have to be perfect. I've seen some crash outs from Kyle Lowry that were not great, that probably sunk the team. But for every one of those, we had 9 times where he literally like pulled them out of a 10-point deficit heading into the fourth quarter and made it a close game where the Raptors ultimately won. So that kind of stubbornness, determination, I think that like that needs to come from Scotty. I think he did a lot of that defensively last year. Basically, it was just like everyone says like the defensive turnaround last season was because Scotty kind of like had enough midway through the season and took it on upon himself to sort of like lead a lot of that defense. And then I think offensively, like a lot of this can just come from hierarchy, but like similar to what they do defensively with the strategy that doesn't necessarily feel like it fits the personnel. I feel like in previous years, okay, it's fine. You know what? We'll run motion offense. We'll give it to Yaka with the elbow. We'll dribble handoff, kind of go side to side. A lot of it doesn't go anywhere, but honestly, there's not that much great on ball creation to sort of make it happen. Sometimes I watch the team now, I'm like, it might just be better if we have guys in their spots and we get Ingram to come have the ball and get Jakob the screen, and then we space it out. It's not creative, it's not inventive, it's not sexy, but it probably will be more efficient than whatever the Raptors keep trying to run. Which feels like it's a system that's benefiting like players with less creation versus now we actually have a player who can create more. And I'm not saying we got to do this all game, but especially with Ingram on the bench, why don't you guys just space out, let Ingram have the ball, get a screen, and then just see where we go from there. Like keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, it's sometimes when we do like film study on this channel,
Mhm.
we're looking at it and we're saying, okay, sometimes they'll run a play and the play is like, yeah, I can see why they're running this play, but why do they have X, Y, and Z player in this specific spot, and it's always, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, well, if you actually had Scotty here, he could be
Well,
more
look,
dangerous.
there was
Or if you had Jakob down
yeah.
here, or if you had quickly over here. So I know that there's a part of the issue is
Mhm.
offensive initiation, I think, which is lacking, especially from the guard play. That's a whole other that's a podcast on its own.
Yeah,
But
But
but yeah.
yeah. I mean, you had a play yesterday where it was the first play coming out of this for the second quarter. So you just had a timeout. You're down 12 already. You're like, okay, let's try to get in the game. And the first play they run, they give it to Jakob at the elbow. Wemby immediately says he's not going to do anything with this here. I'm going to step back and take away the entire paint. Quickly supposed to set an off-ball screen and get a switch for Scotty to post up potentially against a point guard. He first off doesn't have the timing for the screen and then has no physicality for the screen. Doesn't force a switch. Even if they had that play go successfully, Scotty's probably going to be posting up in a congested paint with Wemby flying around because Jakob's at the elbow. And also Jakob's not doing anything at the elbow. So when the play doesn't materialize, he's like, I'm gonna triple handoff to Ochai Agbaji, who's like, I'm not gonna drive this ball. That's not my job. And he just flips it back out to RJ, who has to like drive with 5 seconds left on the clock. And I'm like, this is your first play coming out the timeout, man. Like it can't be like this. And even if it did work with IQ setting a good screen and Scotty getting a mismatch, how is that actually that much better for your team? Because ultimately you're posting up in a congested paint with Wemby around, man. Like, so I don't know. Like, there's lots of things where I look at the team, I'm just like, I don't even understand like where they're trying to go with this. And it's not just purely out of like a like poor execution. You know what I mean? Even if you execute that play correctly, you still are in a bad place offensively.
So there's one other thing I want to talk about with you, but before I get to that, okay, there's this one question finally about the team, and it's I don't know how to ask this. Like, do you think that they have the stomach if it went south to
Mm.
just commit to a rebuild? Not know we're gonna try, and then sometimes when they should be losing, we're not losing, but then the thing, and then okay, we're gonna oh yay, we got we won one random game, and all of a sudden it's like you're looking at the standings on Tankathon, and it's like all of a sudden it's like wait a minute, no, don't let them pass us. Um, would they have the stomach for that this year potentially if it went, Lord forbid it goes that way, but yeah,
Uh,
it might
would
not be
they?
their
Okay,
choice.
should should they? You got to be pragmatic, right? If this team is 10 games under 500, close to the trade deadline, absolutely tank the second half of the season. Like I don't even know what we're saying here, right?
Yeah,
Um, but we seen the team in that scenario 3 years ago, and then they added Jakob. So like, what they should do versus what they will do are two separate things, you know. And I think that
right.
they obviously gave Bobby more responsibility with Masai gone, and Bobby's now the lead decision maker. Um, and it's an awkward one because if it was just a new GM coming in, okay, no problem. Like let's move off the guys. I have no attachment to these guys whatsoever.
Right.
If the best trade comes along, we'll do it. I have the time to sort of go through a rebuild. It's awkward when Bobby just slid over one more chair, and it's like he can't necessarily pretend like this is not his roster as well. Um, So we'll see, man. We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
well,
Yes.
I
What do you
mean,
think, Coach?
last year, all we heard at training camp was rebuild. I never heard Masai say rebuild as much as I
Yep.
have in my life. He's not
Yeah.
one. I don't think he likes it. I'm taking a guess.
Mhm.
3 months into the year, you go get Brandon Ingram. I mean, you don't get Brandon Ingram to finish 12th in the East. Obviously, you're looking to compete for sure.
Yep.
And I think that's
For
where
sure.
the lack of direction, maybe it's communicating that, I'm not sure, but the lack of direction was very confusing for many of us. We're like, okay, it's Tankathon. We're going to look at the rebuild, and then it's like we're going at Brandon Ingram, and we're going to give him a contract. I got nothing against him because I actually like the trade because I like Ingram. I think the lack of communication on that is like you tell us one thing, rebuild, we get that, fine. Now we're going for it in a big draft that was really good. In the next couple of years, 2025, 26, get really strong draft according to all the analysts. So I think that kind of communication was confusing for a lot of people, and it kind of was for me.
Yeah, especially when all of like Masai, Bobby, Darko in his native tongue, all saying these two drafts are the best drafts to look towards. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what are we doing? So I mean, but it'll, I mean, we'll see. I just want to shift, just because of time. I just want to shift towards one of the main topics that I want to discuss
Mhm.
with whatever we have left here, which is basketball discourse. Now, I think
Yeah.
that basketball discourse has shifted. I think part of the reason that is has to do with the old NBA rights media partners, but in general, it's
Mhm.
also shifted because you know people before didn't have as much access to social media. I think that has shifted things. I'm wondering if you think that it's been for the a good thing or a bad thing, because we've also seen a rise in what I call standum over fandom.
Mhm.
Um, and well, yeah, like I'm just curious, like how you view that, and like yeah, it's almost like there's like a what do you? It's almost like basketball populism of
Yeah, yeah,
sorts.
that's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Mm,
Um, I don't know. I think some of it's generational because I can only really imagine young people being like, "I'm gonna make a music account," or "I'm gonna like," because it's like, and I think part of that is like you grow up online, right? So like,
yeah,
fandom exists with lots of other stuff. Like you look at music fandom, for example. People are like forming identities around a person. Now, granted, I don't think you should form an identity around anything other than yourself, just like fundamentally as a human being. But okay, fine. You want to attach someone else to your personality. I suppose we're all attaching the Raptors to our personalities. So if it's not that different, attaching 15 team per people in a team versus one guy. Um, and then I think you're just kind of like only looking at it from like like a one person perspective. Now, granted, that probably works for pop stars because like they're a one person industry, like they're the head
yeah,
of this thing, and then they got to perform, and they got to go out there and sing or whatever, right? You can't do that in the team sport, man. That's just not how this works. And obviously, sometimes like in any sort of workplace, there's gonna be some BS, and you got to
for
sort
sure.
of like play a lesser role that maybe you don't, you deserve more. But realistically, 99% of the time, your guy's just not that good. Otherwise, they will try to organize around it. This is one of the most competitive industries in the world. And so I personally find player stand-up to be like cute in a way, just because sometimes you just want to support a player. Honestly, I learn a lot about players through some of the people who are so into the players that they're able to dig up these small details. And especially as a person who covers a team, I like that. So that's the positive. The negative, I feel like, is just when things go wrong, it's like the quickest thing to finger point, and it
Right.
becomes this like unproductive thing because you got to win or lose as a team, man. It's not really about this guy didn't get the ball here and this guy. You know what I mean? Like it starts to become like AAU parents where we have like an online faction of like a LeVar Balls. Like that doesn't sound pleasant. You know what I mean? And it takes away from the enjoyment of the game, and it's not what the game is about. So, um, yeah. And then in terms of just general discourse, I mean. I think it's like we've had pretty good online basketball discourse for a long time. That's
Yeah,
part of what attracted me to NBA basketball in the first place was how much blogs were out there. I used to love just reading blogs and just getting people's thoughts on, and people's creativity and sort of how they want to cover it. I've learned a lot from it. Just seeing how people break down plays or even just the way they cover teams and how they interview people. Um, and I really only continue to see expansion in that sense. I mean, there's way more access to players now than there was before.
hundred
And
percent.
there's so much more like democratization of like just your ability to sort of put together videos and post and just be creative. And so I feel like honestly the online digital space that's largely unpaid is actually kind of like advancing the conversation forward, and the bigger publications are actually usually playing catch up to some of these ideas. And I feel like that's not just right now. It's been like that for like probably a decade plus.
Yeah, I mean it's. I'm just even thinking like the no ceilings guys, and
Hmm.
we've been lucky enough to have them on this podcast too. And then all of a
Okay.
sudden, just like the thinking basketball, Ben Taylor, it's like
Hmm.
partnership with the NBA. I like the fact that the NBA is making that decision to like empower more people in the digital space that
Hmm.
maybe wouldn't have gotten a look otherwise. I think Adam Spinella. He's working for Nick Nurse right now as a scout.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit upset about that because I enjoyed his channel, but
Adam's great, man. Super generous with his time too.
so, but yeah, and so you have these. Actually, one of the guys that I wish that was still in the space was I think you talked to him, Brad from Too Much Hoop. His defensive
Sure.
breakdowns
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Hmm.
incredible. So if you ever talk to him, give him a shout out. But
Hmm.
yeah, and it's I think overall I think it's a positive thing. I think also these things go in cycles. I'm curious what coach has to say about these this kind of conversation. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
Well, back in the day, if you wanted to go talk with the Raptors online, you went to real GM and you had conversations with people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially if you didn't grow up in the GTA or something like that, that was your access to maybe people who lived here or across Canada, whatever. Um, I find the conversations today more volatile than what they used to be 15 years ago. And I just think everybody has a platform now. Some can really use it for good. Some try to
Hmm.
get a rise out of people. And, well, I know maybe in the past, maybe you make an observation or a comment of a player or Samson Folk will. You guys will sometimes get some chat back from people. I guess maybe my question for you though is, what's that like for you guys? You just ignore it? You just go on about your day? Does it sit with you
Uh,
for a bit? Like, how do you kind of process that?
that's a great question. I mean, okay. So I remember back in the day when I used to write, back when writing was more profitable. I used to like wake up and like read the comments. Like it's out of pure curiosity. Like I genuinely like I welcome a dialogue and I enjoy it. Um, People are always gonna like a player maybe more or a little less than I do, and so they might point out like what your preferences are. I don't know why that's always said as like it's a bias rather than it's just a preference. Like bias feels like you're like intentionally trying to slight somebody, and I think preferences is just how people individualize themselves, right? So I remember like factions back then, but again, it was like largely contained. I think nowadays, like, um, yeah, nowadays I think that it's like, I mean, I think the number one conversation is around Scotty. It's like if you say something about Scotty, like you just kind of expect that the next morning like something's gonna like happen to you, and I'm just like, look, I'm just saying, like, I thought he could have played better here, you know. And that's it. It's out of my love for the Raptors. Out of my love for him as a main player for the Raptors. And I think that when it's like people online, I don't think you really get the benefit of any sort of generosity, sort of in terms of what you said. I think there's usually like a level of skepticism, and I understand like people are always taught to be skeptical of what you see online, but I do hope that over the general course of my work, people can see that like really my loyalty is to the Raptors, my passion is for this. I try to make a good time out of it, try to bring people into a community, and that doesn't mean that like I can't misspeak or I can't be unfair to somebody. I think that's like call it out. I call it all things being equal, but realistically, that is not my intention most times. Like there's no, I mean the last player I really found annoying on the team was Precious Achua, and I think that's fair. Like. You know what I mean? And even him, he wasn't a bad guy. I was just like, what's going on? Like, oh, actually, Jalen McDaniels too, actually. But like, it's like, I feel like I'm picking the right causes to go against.
Yeah,
hey
no, but
man,
like
So,
for
yeah,
me
yeah, yeah.
in my world, I'm not trying to compare myself to like an NBA coach, not even close to that, more about high school, a little bit of college, stuff like that. But
Mm,
when I heard, I'm not trying to pick on this, but when I heard Darker say Precious could be the offensive hub of the second unit, my
yeah,
eyebrows went up a little bit, right? Precious probably had a skill set that was very uh, refined. Like, I mean, it would keep his thing simple for him. It's not making an offensive hub. So there'll be some things like that. I'm like, that doesn't
mhm.
mean that I'm going at Darko. I don't like Darko. Darko's a very nice, generous man, and you're trying to do
Absolutely.
friend. I
nope.
think that's going to be Precious' skill set. Saying, but we'll see.
Well, coach, we're losing you, and we're getting close to the end. So I'll just kind of close it off there. But Will, thank you so much for coming out here, giving us any bit of time that you have. It's been great to chat with you. I've actually chatted with you in the past on your show when you used to be on Sportsnet. I called in one time,
Mhm.
so
Oh,
uh,
nice.
yeah. So this is a long time ago,
Sick.
though. But yeah, but it's really good to chat with you,
Mhm.
and kind of have this kind of discourse back and forth. I hope to have you again sometime when you are available. Say a shout out to Blake because he's also been on the show as well. So, and yeah, of course, people like, comment, and subscribe here. Will, where can they hear you? I mean, they probably know already, but where could they hear you?
Yeah, you can find all my stuff. Just search "Hello and Welcome." That's where I am now. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me and for following the work. And yeah, I appreciate the conversation. It was fun.
Thank you so much. Take care. And if there's is there anything else that that you're working on, or secret project, or not really, uh, you know.
You're gonna have to find out. Don't worry.
Okay. It's like I'm trying to be like Hot Ones,
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
There's stuff. I honestly, there's stuff that I would, once it's actually announced, I'm more than happy to promote. But
For
with a
sure.
lot of these things, you got to wait till it's actually
Oh, the
it's
suspense.
all completely locked in. But yeah, it's exciting. Usually, I usually like to try to talk to players and stuff like that. So
For
it'll
sure.
involve players.
For
So
sure. All right, well, take care,
all right,
enjoy,
appreciate it,
and
man.
everyone, peace.